Hi everybody, it's Martin again. Hopefully you've engaged with Activity 1 content and you start to get a grips of, I guess, what's required on this module, and hopefully getting excited about the prospect of producing this dissertation and having, almost a year to produce it. So it's a significant amount of time. It's a significant piece of work. So hopefully you're getting excited about that as we are as staff. I just wanted to spend a bit of time going through Activity 2 really and talking specifically about the January workshops, because part of those workshops will be you delivering to colleagues, whether that's students and staff, delivering on your dissertation idea. So we're not anticipating that this is a fully formed, ready to go idea. This is basically, here's what I'm thinking about doing, here's a couple of options, what does everybody think? So it's not too formal, and it's certainly not assessed. So I'm going to come back to these bits and pieces on here in a second, but initially just wanted to take you through some slides to help guide me through this particular presentation. Okay, so the Masters Research Project, you're starting to get familiar with what that is going to look like and what that's about. It's one of the strongest aspects of the course, in a sense that the student has pretty much complete autonomy over what they produce and in what direction they choose to go in with their project. As I've said before on earlier videos, it is a collaborative experience in a sense that you are driving the project and you are very much the leader of the project, but you're trying to work with your supervisor to find the best possible route to a high quality project. So external examiners very much like that aspect of the module, as well as the quality of what's produced at the end. Those dissertations you submit are generally of really high quality. They're innovative, they're new, they're fresh, and generally they're of publishable standard, and we do publish quite a large percentage of the theses that are produced. So it's kind of one of those things where obviously you're trying to produce a piece of work to get a qualification, but at the same time, for those of you interested in research and academia, there is the opportunity to publish something if you feel that's something you want to pursue afterwards. Okay, so we are asking you to kind of draw on the skills that you will have developed up to this point on the Masters and in your previous studies as well. So it is very much about a critical appraisal of literature. Part of the dissertation is a literature review, and this is something that we would often work on first and last. When you're developing your research proposal, you will conduct a bit of a literature review to try to get ethical approval and to get as much as that 10% mark as you possibly can. But in your dissertation, this is a broader literature review, something more expansive that really goes into detail in the literature that has informed the idea that you have and has informed your sort of methodology. So it's quite important in terms of the skills you developed already to bring those forward into particularly the early parts of the dissertation. And then when you get to the end of the dissertation, the literature reviews is something you would come back to and you would refine. So it's something you're kind of almost constantly working on and working towards. The skills you developed and the knowledge you developed in the advanced research methods and data analysis module will sort of come to fruition when you're talking about methodology and analysis. And really there's no one way to do a project. There's multiple methods you can throw at a particular project. One of the things I would steer away from is choosing a method because you're comfortable with that method. Actually, this is an opportunity to say, well, this is the best possible method to do this project. I'm going to learn how to do it. I'm going to develop myself personally to make sure I learn this methodology and learn this data analysis in order to get the best possible results. So I would say, of course you'll be more comfortable and more familiar with certain research methods, but it's an opportunity to challenge yourself, I would say. One of the key things about this particular module is obviously the dissertation, which is worth 70% of the grade. And it's a written piece of work, it's a written essay, so we go by the same kind of standards in terms of academic and scientific writing. One of the things that we're asking you to do is to write it in a journal style, and that means being very good and very accurate with things like APA referencing. And APA isn't just a referencing style; it's also an academic style of writing. So you can talk to your supervisor about what that means in terms of when you're producing the thesis and writing it up. But demonstration of scientific and academic writing is really key in this particular project. With hope, you'll find something innovative and contemporary, something that makes a contribution or fills a gap. You will have spotted in the things that you've done so far and in your conversation with your supervisor, you will have spotted areas that need to be understood a little bit more, or things that are completely misunderstood that you think actually we can make a significant contribution to that area, and those are the ones that tend to be the strongest. There's really no point in going over old ground unless you want to make a point of replicating a study, because it needs to be replicated and the area is crying out for replication. Generally, the innovation aspect is really key in terms of providing a strong rationale for doing the study. Okay, so very busy time. The first 6 or 7 weeks is the bit where we do have some structured content trying to guide you through and set you up for this research proposal. So activity 1 was getting to think about possible areas and hopefully getting in touch with the supervisor and starting to have those initial conversations. Trying to, as best you can, if you want to, align yourself with an area of interest that your supervisor has, and thinking about, well, what do I bring to that area, what contribution can I make? Or you've come across an area that you're really passionate about that isn't covered by a member of staff, but you've developed a good relationship with a member of staff and you think, actually, I'd quite like to be supervised by them. That's fine too. We would recommend, for those of you who are struggling with ideas or thinking, what can I do, what is a good idea, to have a look at those staff areas of interest and potential projects and see which one fits your personal experiences and expertise, and go with one of those. So kind of getting some up-to-date reading and knowledge around the area is obviously key, and that can inform the conversations that you have with your supervisor. Also in activity 1, we obviously wanted you to try to digest as much as possible the dissertation handbook, to understand what the timeline is like, and also when those submission dates are for assignments. The research proposal is obviously the next one, and that's a particularly important one because it involves your ethical application as well, and you can't collect data without ethical approval. So that first deadline is a really important one. If you're able to do a really good job and get through ethics relatively efficiently, it means that you're just giving yourself more time to collect data and therefore analyze the data and therefore write the thing up. So yeah, that's quite an important aspect, that first submission. So that's where you should be focusing on at the moment, developing a good proposal and figuring out a concrete idea. And we don't expect you to be 100% there just yet. It is a process, and a process that will be further guiding you through when we see you in the workshops in January. Those unable to attend the workshops, there'll be some material available there too, so we're not going to leave you out in the cold. Just talking about the workshops, part of this, we're asking you to deliver a 10-minute presentation where you outline the area in which you want to investigate. And again, as I said a few minutes ago, this isn't supposed to be a fully formed, this is exactly what I'll do and this is how it will be type of presentation. It's not that. It is, this is my idea, this is how I think I'm going to go about it. It should reflect initial conversations you've had with your supervisor. If you haven't managed to catch up with the supervisor yet, then this is an opportunity to say, this is what I want to do, and then we'll match you up with the supervisor there and then. So if you haven't managed to chat to a supervisor before those January workshops, all's not lost. We'll match you up with the supervisor and make sure you're good to go. So this is about refinement of the research proposal. It's about having a supportive environment in which people can give you feedback, can give you ideas. You can see other people's presentations and get ideas from them as well about how they're approaching things and what their ideas are, with the idea that when you leave the workshops and you come away from those 2 days, you have a really clear idea of what you're going to do, you further establish that relationship with the supervisor, and you have a good idea of what that proposal will look like and what some of the main issues will be. So, important couple of days. Again, those unable to attend, we're asking you to submit a VoiceThread version of this presentation, and therefore we can give you feedback electronically. So again, an important process even if you're not attending the workshops. This is not assessed, so this doesn't contribute to any percentage towards your grade. We're not assessing this thing. This is designed to make sure everybody is comfortable with where they're at in terms of the dissertation, and everybody has an opportunity to refine their ideas to produce the best possible assignment, especially at that proposal stage. So don't worry about being evaluated and judged. This is a very supportive environment in which you're not being assessed. So those unable to attend, we'll send some instructions through about creating a VoiceThread presentation, and we'll give you some feedback on those ideas and have the same conversations as we've had in the workshop as well. And we'll be recording vast proportions of the workshops to make sure you're not missing out on any content. But if you can, please try to attend the workshops. They tend to be really useful. So I think from now until we sort of break up, I think you should be making contact with a potential supervisor. It's never too early to do that, and I realise that some of you have already been in contact with supervisors, and that's really great. Those who haven't, then have a look at the research areas for the supervisors. Think about what you've been particularly interested in over the past year or so, and start to formulate that relationship with the supervisor, and then go from there. Start to have those conversations, and things will start to fall into place very quickly, you will find. Alongside that, start to develop an initial literature review. So do some searching, get some reading done, start to write some aspects down, just to really inform what you present on, which will also filter through into your research proposal. So it's about coming to terms with what the area is about and what research has been done and what gaps might be there, and also familiarising yourself with what the research proposal looks like, and what the format is, and what questions you need to answer in order to do a really good job at that. As I say, part of that is an ethical application, so you want to do that as well as you possibly can to get through the ethical process efficiently. And aligned to that is developing your 10-minute presentation. So just asking you to do a PowerPoint presentation that gives us an idea of what you're going to do, or what you're proposing to do, and then we can give you feedback on that. So, some words of advice really. Part of this is about drawing on your strengths. It's certainly about drawing on your strengths, but I think the more important part is drawing on the bits that you're really interested in. And it might be something you've been thinking about for years, and you've thought, I've been waiting for an opportunity to explore this in a more formal setting. Might be something you come across in the modules that you studied with us that you think seems to be a gap there, or there's something I didn't quite understand, or there's something that I feel needs to be investigated more. It could be something you've seen in the work that you do with people that you want to tap into and understand that. So it's got to be an area that you're interested in. You're going to be doing this for just under a year really, so it's got to be something you have a personal investment in. I think that definitely helps in terms of motivation when it does get tough collecting data, and when you've got all your data you're trying to analyse it. It's got to be something that you really want to find out what's going on with this data. View the research profiles, go through all the staff profiles, and there might be some ideas in there that you think, yes, that's the one for me, I want to do that. Those ideas aren't necessarily concrete. You can add your bits, you can adapt them, you can, if there's an area that you think, well, I want to do that area but I don't want to do that exact project, then talk to the supervisor and say, well, how about this? Again, it's a collaboration, especially in those early parts when you're forming those ideas. So yeah, contact staff, start those conversations, and also use the discussion boards. I mean, what tends to happen on this module is discussion board starts very well with lots of content, and then it peters off a little bit as people find their sort of project specific issues and challenges and barriers, so it becomes between them and the supervisor. But please share your experiences on discussion board, because often people don't realise that others are in the same position when they're finding data collection quite tough, or they're trying to face this really difficult data analysis and things. You're all in the same boat really along this project, even though you're all doing specific different things. You will experience very similar challenges and barriers, so please use that as a resource. So we do sorry, my voice went a bit weird there. We do have some workshops in January, as I keep referring to, on the 8th and 9th. So these workshops are important for a couple of reasons. So firstly, it is an opportunity to talk about your master's research project, your dissertation, but also it's useful to engage with others and colleagues and talk about progress and things like that. That's the network aspect is really important too. But we also have guest talks, so we'll have trying to line up a good guest speaker there that will talk about research to practice. We'll have some module specific information about what needs to be done over the course of the year, and even though you can get a feel of that from the module material so far, sometimes useful to have somebody explain that, and we can have a good session on that to make sure everybody's comfortable with where the module's going. So day one is based around those aspects and presenting your research to supervisors and colleagues and getting some feedback, presenting your ideas. Then we'll have some opportunities for one-to-one meetings. So the idea here is you have a brief catch-up with your supervisor and you arrange a one-to-one meeting for the following day. And we'll have some brief meetings and to really set up what needs to happen within the next month. We'll continue our short presentations, so we're not going to get all of them done here. It tends to spill over a little bit because people are just so interested and they want to keep talking, which is lovely. So we'll continue with those on day 2, and then me and Matt will run a where to from here workshop. So we'll talk about what to think about in terms of your post MSc development, and whether that's going into applied work, whether that's going back into an occupation to now use what you've learned from the masters in your current job, or whether that's academic positions such as lecturing or research. We'll start to talk about the options and get a bit more detail around things like BASES, BPS, HCPC. Then we'll have lunch, and then we have an early finish, and this is an opportunity here to have more meetings with your supervisors if that's something that you want to do, or if you want to get off, that's fine too. For those of you studying the science course, then we obviously have a very slightly different timetable. So those on sports science and coaching, we have pretty much the same, but your where to from here will be with John and a sports scientist, because your routes will be slightly different to the psychs, but the principle is the same. The idea is what are the options, what are the routes that you can take next in your career development. So hopefully that's been useful. Please obviously engage in activity 2, and then I'll see you in activity 3. In terms of the phased release stuff, what I've done is pretty much release everything straight away, so you can have access to all the material from the word go. So if you go straight over to activity 3, you'll hear me again talking about various other bits and pieces.